everybody, Levi Clay here, and today we are going to be talking about the subject of arpeggios. In fact, over on my Patreon page, I have just launched Arpeggio April, where we are going to be devoting all of our weekly guided practice routines to the subject of arpeggios and giving you a real in-depth workout on, arpeggios all over the neck, technical exercises, mind exercises, just ways to improve your overall arpeggio playing. So if you want to check us out, check the link in the description and get involved again in weekly guided practice routines. You'll also get access to weekly guided ear training sessions, everything that's up there, all the transcriptions. You'll have a great time. Hopefully see some of you guys over there. So, why are we talking about arpeggios? Well, for me, arpeggios were absolutely the game changer when it came to improving my overall ability to play chord changes in music. When it came to improvisation, when it came to composition, really having an understanding of arpeggios and the power of arpeggios made everything different for me. And it comes down to this one key principle that I was told way back in the day in music school. The old adage is, when in danger or in doubt, always whip your arpeggio out. And at the time, that didn't mean all that much to me, but at its core, there's a lot of value that can be said in that statement. If you don't know what notes to play, if you're struggling, what do I play over that chord? I get questions like this all the time. Levi, what do I play over an E13 flat 9 chord? The answer is there, staring you in the face. If you know what an E13 flat 9 is, if you know the notes that are in that, if you know the intervals that are in that, then you're already armed to play everything that you could want to play over that. And then anything else is just fair game. It comes down to this idea that when you're playing an arpeggio, you're playing the notes of the chord, and everything else is really just a tension that leads you back to the sound of the chord. Let's take a look at the guitar and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So in week number 1 of these guided practice routines for arpeggios, I'm focusing on dominant 7 vocabulary. So if we just take a look at some basic dominant 7 vocabulary, if I look at a C7 chord up at the 8th fret, my basic arpeggio for that, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7, is going to sound like this. Here's my root of C, my 3rd, my 5th, flat 7, and then my root again. We could continue on up, 3rd, 5th, flat 7, root. Now, to be honest, just that as a pattern, if I put it up on screen for you, is going to look like this. And there are lots of ways that you could process that information. You could deal with it just as black dots, as I've presented it here. You could indicate where the root notes are, which would look something like this. You could even go as far as putting intervals on the diagram. But at its core, when you start doing these sorts of things, you are dealing in theory. You are dealing in knowledge of what you're playing. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, it's not an essential part of being able to play melodically and being able to play over a set of chord changes. So as an example, if I put a diagram on screen for the sorts of notes that I would be thinking of playing when playing over a C7 chord, those sorts of notes that I'm going to play all the time on a chord like that, there's a lot of notes that I'm playing there. And if you look at it on a diagram, you're going to have something like this. And that's with all of those intervals there. And that can mean a lot, or it could mean not very much. I can make that diagram considerably more simple by giving you just the notes of the arpeggio. And then suddenly everything that I play comes under one of two categories. It's either a note that's in the chord, or there are going to be notes that aren't in the chord. And we want really to understand the difference between notes that are in the chord and notes that aren't in the chord. So arpeggios as a method of practice is a wonderful thing for you to work on. And of course, they're not just beneficial for your ears, though they're wonderful for the ears, but they're really, really good as technique practice, because no matter how you choose to play your arpeggios, you can play these, you could alternate pick them. You could play with more strict economy picking. Or you could even hybrid pick. Or however you're going to choose to play your arpeggios, they're always going to be a nice technical workout for you because you are mixing up how many notes are on a given string. So great technical workout, but to be honest, as a visualization tool, they're going to be absolutely tremendous for us. So rather than just, in this example, rather than just playing up and down an arpeggio, which of course is great practice, and we're looking at those in the practice routines, the play-alongs, and that's important to practice those sort of things, I thought I'd give you something that might be a little bit more challenging. Now, I think that we'd all agree that when most of us are practicing or playing arpeggios or scales or anything, we have a habit as guitar players to start at the bottom of scale. So if I play a blues scale, there's that want to start on the bottom. And it doesn't matter what the thing is. Guitar players, we tend to lean towards starting things at the bottom when it comes to practice. But when it comes to playing melodies, I don't tend to think of my scale or my arpeggio from the bottom of the scale. I need to be able to see it from anywhere. If a C minor chord happens, I want to be able to play. At no point there did I start down here, right? That's just me jamming on a C minor chord. And the same should be true of any arpeggio sound. So the idea of practicing an arpeggio from the bottom to the top is not incorrect, but certainly not the only way you want to be practicing things. So if we take this arpeggio and we break it down into 4-note segments, that'd be one of them. We could also play. We could play. We could play. We could play. We could also play. Now, as you start to expand your horizons and you learn more of these arpeggio patterns, you can start to, as an exercise, maybe practice playing through a set of chord changes, but just doing it maybe on the D, G, and B strings. So I'm big on triads, and I like to see triads as my kind of roots for all of these arpeggios that I'm building here. If I did take a chord progression of C, F, and G, I'll play them all as dominant chords just to stay on point. I know that this is a C triad. I know that this is an F triad. And I know that this is a G triad. You should check before you play these things. So C, F, G. Or I might play C, F, G. And the idea behind that is, rather than having to play C, F, G, I'm freer to play my arpeggios around my triad information. So if this is a C, my C7 would be. My F would be. My G back to my C. Now, if I really limit myself to just the top 3 strings, being able to play your arpeggios around a lot, at its core is a wonderful thing to practice. So what I'm going to encourage you to go away and practice today is not just learning your arpeggio patterns, but being able to play them in multiple places. This is all C7s, right? Up the dusty end there. It's not just to know the arpeggios and to practice silly things like you could play a C going from down here Or you could play a different way. You might go... silly ways to get through that. That's a fun thing to practice. But being able to limit yourself to, can I play the notes of a C7 arpeggio just on the D, G and B strings? That's going to be this. If I'm down here, I might play... go into an F. Lovely. So, of course, we're really just scratching the surface. There's only so much I can cover in a 10-minute video. Arpeggios are just a glorious subject, and we're just dealing in one sound here, one part of the rich tapestry that is arpeggio practice. There are so many chord types out there, and realistically, you want to be able to play any one of those chord sounds that might happen in music, because at the end of the day, if you're looking at a chord progression, if you're learning a song and there's chords in there that you're unfamiliar with, when in danger or in doubt, you can always just whip your arpeggio out. And as you start developing your playing more, you start to see all of your melodic lines as really just being embellishments on arpeggios. Scales really stop existing to you. I haven't thought about scales in a very, very long time because, again, there's no better way to close a video. When in danger or in doubt, I just whip my arpeggio out. Lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon. I'm making these videos for you guys. So if you want to be like these awesome people and get access to my weekly guided ear training sessions, weekly guided practice routines, you want to have private lessons with me, you want to download all of my transcriptions that I do for Patreon guys, then that is the best way for you to go and do that. Tons and tons of value. You could sign up today and get access to everything I've ever posted, and then you could immediately leave. But you won't do that because you'll have such a great time. You'll learn so much. You'll have a good time. So be like these awesome people, do that. You can also head on over to Amazon, check out one of my books. I have many available. I am sure you will find something that you enjoy. Thanks so much for checking this video out, guys. If you do have any questions about this, please do let me know in that comment section below, and I will see you for some more arpeggio practice as the month goes on. Laters.